Welcome to Raging Bullets, a DC Comics fan podcast, episode 645. Welcome to Raging Bullets. I'm Sean Whalen, drnorge, and I'm joined as always by my co-host Jim, the sensei of the whatnot, the Duke of the Sultan of Strategery, the indestructible bridge-defying, is forever to be known as Jim in the Green because he has earned it, and of course he is the elder statesman of the podcast, Segulin.
How's it going, eh?
Jim, on this episode, we are going to be talking about Fables 151, the returning series, and we're also going to talk about World of Krypton, issue number 6. Plus, we have a great Speeding Bullets segment about all kinds of DC news. We are sponsored, as always, by DCB Service and InStockTrades.com. Mr. Segulin, what is going on over at DCBService.com?
We got a cool 3-issue limited series, Superman Space Age, issue number 1. It looks like this takes place on Crisis on Infinite Earths, but it's a different Earth, and it's about that Earth's Clark Kent first coming out and first being Superman. So that looks kind of neat. Looking forward to that. We've got the Superman versus Lobo hardcover, 50% off, only $12.49, and we've got Superman's pal Jimmy Olsen boss Perry White one shot, 40% off, only $2.99. So thank you, DCBS.
That was a mouthful.
Yes.
I'm excited for that, though. So it's a Perry White one-shot.
It's a Perry White one-shot going off of the old Superman's pal, Jimmy Olsen. I saw it, I was like, oh, that's kind of neat that they're giving Perry his one-shot.
Yeah. But it's Superman's pal, Jimmy Olsen's boss, Perry White, one-shot.
Right.
I like that. All right, over at InStockTrades.com, we have the deals of the week, and I love these. We've got Galaxy, the Prettiest Star. This was the free comic book day issue that came out. Now it's been released. It's $16.99 regularly, 50% off, only $8.49. And these original trade paperbacks have been really good, so if you haven't had a chance to grab one of them, get it at that 50% off. I got to this week, I was very lucky to go to an evening with Neil Gaimen. So I'm jonesing for the fact that they're releasing Sandman Book 4 trade paperback. InStockTrades.com has two versions of it. They have the regular cover, which is $34.99 regularly, 50% off, only $20.92, and a variant version of the cover, which is $34.99 regularly, 50% off, only $17.49. The Netflix series is coming for Sandman. If you have not read the original series, do yourself a favor. And I want to thank DCB Service and InStockTrades.com for continuing to support our show. We have a contest that's currently running, and it's going to be running until midnight of June 8th. And it's a very simple contest to be a part of. It's just a participation contest. A lot of you participate in the show in a wide variety of different ways. You participate in our Facebook group. You send in voicemails. You send in parodies in the past, like comic strips, Where's What Not Nows, things like that. Basically, anything since May 8th that you have done to participate in the show, sending in emails, sending in parodies, Facebook group, voicemails, whatever you want to do, reviews, any contribution you can make. It's not limited to what I've shouted out here. If there's something wacky or fun you want to do to be a part of the show between now and June 8th, tell me what it is. Email us at ragingbullets@gmail.com or call our voicemail line and participate that way. Participate in the Facebook group. If there's something that you think I'm missing and I won't count you, shoot me an email and let me know, because I want to count everybody. I'm keeping this very loose because the idea of this first contest, I want to bring back regular contests into the show again. And this first one is truly meant to be a thank you for all of you who have been continuing to participate in the show. Whether you are a long-time participant or a lapsed one that's jumping back in, we appreciate you. So thank you for all you do. The prizes are as follows. Animal Man Omnibus Hardcover. Batman Earth 1, the Complete Collection trade paperback. Superman 78 hardcover. I pre-ordered all these through DCBService.com. First prize winner gets the first choice. Second prize winner gets the second choice from the remaining two. And then the third prize winner would get the third one. I think they're all great collections. So the idea is just to spread the love with some great comics. This contest is done in partnership with dcbservice.com. They give us a certain credit each month for advertising that we do, and then I obviously put my own money towards the rest of it. So I really wanted to do something that's really cool, to thank all of you for the things that you do, and just to bring some of the fun of a contest back into the show. So that's it. It's easy enough to participate. Mr. Segulin, what kind of a podcast are we?
Raging Bullets is a spoiler podcast. We go in-depth into plot lines, story twists, and whatnot of the comics we're discussing on today's show. So if you haven't read the books, you may want to come back later so you can better enjoy the show.
You know what, Jim, there's something I want to talk about really quick before we jump into our Speeding Bullets segment. It's actually something that should have been in the Speeding Bullets segment. I've been listening to recently, and when I get into this lawn mowing season, I listen to a lot of audiobooks. I've finally gotten to the Audible Act 2 of the Sandman, the full cast audio drama that they're doing. And this one is Season of the Mists. Each section of each issue of the comic is broken down as a chapter of this audio. It is incredible. It's narrated by Neil Gaimen, but I mean, James McAvoy is back as Dream. It is. I'm not going to sell properly the vast nature of the cast that is doing this. This is the chapter that starts to introduce the Endless and all of the coolness that goes along with it, and has a battle between Lucifer, and I put it under quotes, a battle between Lucifer and Dream that is mind-blowing in its resolution's a very strong word. It's a story that can't be missed. These Audible originals are fantastic, and I'm shouting them out because a lot of buzz is going on about the really cool upcoming Netflix series. Do not ignore the Audible releases that are out there. It is a very cool time to be a Sandman fan, and this is one totally, it's not a sponsorship thing or anything like that. I'm shouting this out because as a fan, I'm geeking out over how cool these Audible releases have been. He announced at the event that work is already underway to do Act 3. So these are going to be ongoing, these Audible releases, and I'm thrilled because they are that good and well worth picking up. It really is a full-blown out retelling of the issues of Sandman in the Audible format. So super, super cool. And without further ado, let's talk some comics.
You filthy criminals.
Jim, there's been a lot of DC news over the last week or so, and I want to thank Jared Cardos over at the Facebook group. He's been posting a lot of news and information lately, and I've been using it as a source, and it's been really terrific to have it there. So please join our Facebook group if you want to see this stuff and comment on it right away. But Batman vs. Robin's coming. It's going to be a 5 oversized issues spinning out of the current arc of World's Finest by Mark Waid. Have you been caught up on that World's Finest book?
No, not yet.
It's terrific. I love Mark Waid. So the idea of him spinning this out, and Mark Waid being back at DC is like a geek joy for me. I really love him being back. This is kicking off in September, so it's going to be Bruce versus Damian. We're getting in August the final chapter of the Deceased trilogy, War of the Undead Gods, and yeah, Darkseid's on the cover. I love Deceased. I know you're in the same boat I am, so more of that is great. The idea that this is a trilogy, and it felt like all along like this was a larger story, so I'm really excited to see more of Deceased. We're getting a series of one-shots called Batman One Bad Day. It's a graphic novel series. And each one is going to be done by a different creative team. There's going to be a Riddler one done by Tom King. There's going to be a Two-Face one, Mr. Freeze, Clayface, characters like that. With talent like G. Willow Wilson on tap, Joshua Williamson, John Ridley, this looks really great. I love these. Batman has a history of having really strong original one-shots that are these really tight stories with just amazing writing and art talent. So I'm expecting these to fall in that same vein from everything they've been announcing so far. And that writing talent is like, wow. So that's exciting. There's a game coming out called Multiversus, and it looks like it's going to be like a competitor for things like Fortnite and Rocket League, these free-to-play games that are out there, because it's free-to-play. It's going to be like a battle royal, like mashup crossover of like Batman, Harley Quinn, Shaggy from Scooby-Doo, Bugs Bunny, the Tasmanian Devil, people like that. The vast Warner Brothers properties. So if it has that like same kind of pick up and play gameplay, I see this thing having some traction just because of the properties alone, and people are loving these games. I've even jumped into Fortnite, I've jumped into Rocket League. I enjoy both of those games. I'm not a diehard in them, but boy, I can certainly appreciate the appeal and why they're out there. This is one, on paper, this one looks like it's right up my alley, so I see myself spending some time on this one. But it's an interesting sort of thing, and I'm just glad to see more multimedia approaches for DC properties. Getting out there, getting these characters out there for awareness, because I think games like this are a great way to get people to know Batman, know Harley Quinn, and all these properties. I mean, Bugs Bunny, Tasmanian Devil, these are characters I've grown up with that are really important to me that I'm glad to see coming out into a game like this. So it's some cool stuff. You read anything fun this week? I mean, obviously we got some books that we're going to be talking about, but I picked up and read in the app the Round Robin 2022 Suicide Squad Dark Pitch and Superboy Man of Tomorrow by Porter and Lindsay. Did you read either of those?
No, I did not.
So the Superboy Man of Tomorrow is the one that won, and that's the one with Connor. But it's the Connor Kent from the Death and Return of Superman. Like, he's been plopped here from the multiverse, and you know how he's back now. I mean, we've seen him. This series is going to be focused on him trying to find his place in our world, where we've got Superman with a son, we've got Supergirl, we've got there's plenty of super characters here already. So it's like, how does he fit in? Where does he find a spot? And it really addresses, he's got a relationship with Ma and Pa Kent, but he is from the multiverse, so he's a fish out of water here, trying to find his place in a world where it's weird to say that doesn't seem to be on paper a need for another Superman, but there doesn't seem to be a need for another Superman. And I love when it addresses like character-driven stuff like that, where it adds a humanity aspect, because we all go through that, right? Where it's, what is my spot? Where's my importance? What is my role? How do I fit into a group? How do I fit into life in general and make a mark, make myself known? And I think it's a real world piece. And the story really is very character driven and focused on that. So the original, it was half an issue in the pitch. And then the other half was Suicide Squad Dark. If you haven't read this one, it's really cool. The idea, again, going to the multiverse, it looks like it's the Red Rain Batman.
Oh, cool.
It's that world. But what if Amanda Waller went there and put together a Suicide Squad? And I think it's our Amanda Waller. Remember how we've seen her go to other Earths? So it looks like the pitch was, and this one didn't win, but man, it's an example of, like, I don't think we could have gone wrong with any of the pitches that were in this particular round robin. That was one of the pitches, and I'm like, I want to read that too. It's got a half-issue pitch to this whole thing, and you get to see... It really is, like a vampire Plastic Man and just various, evil Zatanna. These are just various characters that you want to see kind of go at it and be a part of this. But what a cool pitch that was. I highly recommend reading it. But it's Earth 13 it takes place on. So it's really neat. It's neat to see their version of Swamp Man. It's the Swamp Thing. Matter Eater Lad tries eating him in the very beginning of the issue. Their version of Matter Eater Lad. They're doing some wacky stuff. And I like the idea of these round robins pushing the envelope with those things. The other thing I read this week is I got caught up in Robins because I wanted to, with the new round robin coming first. I hadn't finished up that 6-issue arc of Robins. It's a story I can't recommend enough. It really is about the Robins learning how Bruce viewed them, not like if they weren't going to be a Robin. So there's these scenarios that are out there, these tests that are out there to see if they're prepared to become a Robin. But there's also Bruce's analysis of who they would have become if they had chosen a different path. You get to see Bruce's perspective on their talents, Bruce's perspective. We all know about Bruce's over-planning and paranoia and sometimes playing puppet master in a way where it's like, could we have just sat down and talked about this maybe? And it's one of those Batman family-driven stories that by the end, you and I were big fans of the Pete Tomasi run on the Batman and Robin book because of the fact that he spent a lot of time on the Batman family. This story really grabs that at the core with the idea of the character who wasn't really the first Robin, but was the inspiration for elements of the first Robin. Like, it's where Bruce got it wrong and made serious mistakes before Dick Grayson and kept this secret, and ultimately has to learn about himself, that maybe to forgive himself, learn from his mistakes, learn what he did wrong there and how it affects his own interactions with his current family. It was really, really cool. You also get to see some great moments with Damian and Stephanie and Tim Drake and Jason Todd and Dick Grayson coming to terms with where they're at now after everything they've gone through, with the good points of Bruce and the bad points of not just Bruce, but of being a Robin, and the world and the choices that they've made, sacrifices that they've made for this thing that they believe in. And ultimately, in the end, deciding who they are now and how they want to interact with each other and what that needs to look like. It was a really, really cool story. And don't pass this one up. You know, if you're like, oh, it's a Robin thing. It doesn't. This is a really, really, I think it's an important story for those people that are looking for, you know, getting to know the Batman family a little bit more. So don't miss this one because it was part of that. I also got caught up on that Shadow War crossover that's going on, including the Shadow War Zone one-shot. The Shadow War Zone one-shot's one that if you missed it or didn't pick it up, it's an anthology title that focuses on a wide variety of characters. There's a really cool Harley Quinn story that talks about how Shadow War affects her. There's Ghostmaker and Joker Killer, that they're in there, which is really great. It's cool to see them. And the ideas of where it's kind of like a prelude to the Batman Inc. stuff that's going on with them right now, which is cool. There's a story about Talia al Ghul that talks about some of the prelude to this from Talia's perspective. And then there's a great Black Canary one-shot that opens up, which please give me more Black Canary. It's written by Joshua Williamson, and the handling of it is, and I got to comment on the art. The art and colors by Otto Schmidt. And it's just a really sharp. It just made me wish for another Black. I would love this artwork on a Black Canary Green Arrow series.
Yep.
I would love to see the two of them. I don't know if you got a chance to read that one shot, but it's fantastic.
Yeah, she's an awesome character. She's one of those ones where you wish you would see more of her. You wish she would find a home somewhere. Because we loved her in Justice League when she was the leader of the Justice League. Mm-hmm. Love her always with Ollie, but I don't know where they can put her. Whether it's a part of an Ollie book, whether her solo book with Justice League, do something with her. She's a great character.
Some of the reveals that are going on in the Shadow War storyline, and really the ending of Robin and Deathstroke, not the ending of Robin and Deathstroke, but the build from Robin and Deathstroke leading into this with Deathstroke's son and Ravager and the whole family and the relationship of Deathstroke's son to Damian. And I'm gonna dance around that a little bit, only because I don't want to overly spoil it because we're just doing this as a Speeding Bullets segment. But this Shadow War story has been gripping. And I really have enjoyed it a great deal. Don't miss out on, Batman 123 has the second part of that Batman versus Deathstroke and the Joker storyline. Don't miss out on that story because that's a wacky little bit as well. It's a nice little two-parter, and it's really cool. The stuff that DC's doing right now is really great. But this has been an awesome and satisfying Batman crossover. We've been talking a lot about the build to Flashpoint Beyond and what we've got going on with Dark Crisis this summer. It's not getting lost in the shuffle is this really cool Shadow War crossover that's going on in Batman. I'm really, really digging it. It's a cool time to be a fan. Because if, let's say you're not enjoying one of those pieces that I just threw out, the nice part is, all the eggs aren't in one basket at DC. There's some really cool events going on, and there's really something for everybody. So if you're for some, we all have different tastes, and if one story's just not grabbing you the same way, that's nice. I prefer when there's multiple events going on. There's multiple big stories going on. It's nice to jump, even from you mentioned sometimes palate cleansers, right? Well, what you're really referring to when you're talking about stuff like that is the ability to take a break from this one thing and go to something else that's satisfying, right? And sometimes it's things that are unexpected. Well, in this case, it's nice with all of that going on. I need it. It's great to have a good Bruce story. And I love the character. I have high hopes with where I think Dark Crisis is going to go based on what I'm reading, that we're going to be getting more of that in 2023. This has just been a lot of fun. So I don't know, it's a great week. I just really have enjoyed this week being a DC fan. Again, I want to thank Jared for making the posts that he did over in the Facebook group. That's incredibly helpful to the show when you do that. So just give him a quick shout out, and thank everyone over there who posts and gives their thoughts and feedback on things. I do read all of them, and it's helpful for me for the podcast just to stay up to date on what's going on. Cool stuff coming down the pike, though. I get excited for that. I like to know things that are coming that are interesting, and I'm glad to see that. It's been a good week.
I know, this stuff's kind of neat. I was just looking while you were talking. I was on the fan page looking at some of that stuff. I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. I'm really looking forward to the Batman, Bruce versus Damian fight. Just to see where that goes, because there's so much going on between the two of them with Alfred. And the image on there shows Alfred there, shows Damian's little girlfriend. I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. Like, everything's getting tied in together. And I so want Alfred back, to be honest with you. But I love the fact that they're using his death so much. And it's affected so many people, because it really just ripped at Damian, really destroyed him. And it's, in a way, broken the Bruce and Damian relationship. They didn't have the greatest of things, but they were getting better. They were slowly, you could see kind of like moments, and then all this happens. And I'm just like, oh man, I love what they're doing. I just really do want Alfred back, because I want to see the moment when Alfred comes back and Damian hugs him. Just that tender moment of the little monster. I want to see that. And I want to see Bruce and Alfred and Damian work together to fix what's broken between Bruce and Damian. And there's so many different things they could do and different ways they can do it. But yeah, I'm just going to sit back, wait for it to happen. But I really want it, and I need it.
Death and loss, and it's one of the great things about the way they've handled the death of Alfred and the aftermath of it. You've gone through it, I've gone through it. When you lose people in your life that you're close to, and you're dealing with siblings, you're dealing with surviving family members in general and things like that, it's very easy for people to say the wrong thing. And something that can be cutting, without intending. Sometimes they're dealing with, I know when I go to wakes and funerals and things like that, you want to say the right thing, and sometimes you get it horribly wrong. Or you don't say what you should have said. You walk out afterwards and go, oh, man, I wish I had just said this. Yeah. And sometimes it's things, to provide comfort. Sometimes you say something in response without thinking and realizing that, that was a low blow. And you didn't realize that you made a low blow. Sometimes it's selfish, where you're hurting yourself and you say something and your intention wasn't really to stick it to somebody else. You said something because of the fact that you're emotionally hurting, and sometimes you can get defensive and things like that. I love that this aftermath has had all of that embedded into it. It's felt very real. That's where these characters become three-dimensional. That's where they're living and breathing to us. And it's one of the advantage of a serialized storytelling medium is that you have the time to be able to tell this through multiple story arcs, to drop those nuggets in. Writers have an opportunity to build off themselves, but then each other as well, where if they're paying attention to continuity, that's where, I'd love to be a fly on the wall and see how that works with regards to how much is that is editorial, how much of that is the writer. I'm sure it's a combination of A and B where, a good editor will say, hey, there's an opportunity here for you to drop something in about this, or, writers already got that on the radar because they want to explore it further, and the editor's job then is just to tighten it up and go, hey, if you change the wording this way just a little bit, it will, tie a little bit closer or build off of what's going on in this other story. I think that's great, and they've done a really great job behind the scenes of keeping this sense of storytelling progress with Bruce and Damian in general, both in individualized stories when they're separate from each other, but then when they bring them together, it's like an explosion of like things that I want to see. And I really appreciate that because that's a real life thing too, right? You have family that lives out of town. You have family you don't see all the time. You have family that even's local and you don't get to... Maybe you interact with a lot, but you don't have the real conversations, and then something causes them to come to a head and you realize there's things that were festering under there that you never realized you needed to say. I loved every bit of this drama so far because it feels so real and it feels like we're a part of that. And we're in the midst of hanging out with our friends who are going through this loss. That sense of escapism that's a part of this has been something that I've really appreciated because I feel this story has felt very, very real. Our next discussion is going to be a Fables 151, The Black Forest, Chapter 1, Green Jack, in which things continue more or less from where we left off. Bill Willingham is the writer-creator, Mark Buckingham is the penciler variant cover, Steve Laiola on the inks, Lee Lowridge on colors, Todd Klein on letters, Christina Kalida is the cover artist, Julian Totino Tedesco on the 125 variant cover, Mark Doyle is the editor. And apologies for any name butchery there. This has been a homecoming and a half. This came out of nowhere. I didn't realize this was a thing, and then all of a sudden I saw the ad in one of the books, and I was flipping through it, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's right. Fables is coming back for a 12-issue arc. And I love the choice to continue it. It's a Black Label book now. It's been labeled as a Black Label book, which is great. For me, out of the starting gate, this was a homecoming. I loved it, and I'm going to be gushing throughout this as far as why I'm so glad that Fables is back. I was already a fish on a hook with this. You know I'm a huge Fables fan. You haven't read as much Fables as I have. I guess one of my first questions to you is, first of all, did you like this first issue? And second of all, how approachable is it? I've read everything Fables. I read all the miniseries. I read Jack of Fables. I've read all the spin-off books, things like that. So I'm very versed in the Fables lore of all the hardcovers, one-shots, things like that. My reason for stating that is I'm walking into this having read everything, and it's issue 151. It's meant to be a brand new arc and a new start over, but yet, the right balance of you want to give something very satisfying for the long-time readers. I guess my question to you is, I can't speak to how accessible this is to a newer reader or somebody who maybe hasn't read everything. I feel like this is an accessible issue. Is it? What did you think? Did you enjoy this? Are you in for all 12 issues? Where does this fall on your reading?
Well, first off, I'm in for all 12 issues. So it was a very cool read and very good read, and I enjoyed it. My knowledge on Fables is, I do have a solid basic knowledge of Fables. Read Jack of Fables for a little while there. I liked Jack of Fables. Thought that was kind of a cool story.
It's a great book.
I don't think I read all of Jack of Fables, so I think I stopped before that series ended. I no idea anything about what happened to Fabletown. I'll be honest with you, I didn't even know Fables had ended.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't know this was a continuation or the fact that it was a relaunch or any of that stuff. So for them coming in at 151, I think was a really neat play on their part.
Yep.
Instead of saying 1 of 12 and having it be in its own series, they're saying no, this is just a continuation of it. But I really didn't remember that Fables wasn't around anymore. We probably talked about it. We probably said something about it, and but I'll be honest, it wasn't like on my 100% radar that this isn't a story has ended. Now they're bringing it back. Even with the advertisements, I remember seeing, it's Fables 151. Oh, okay. And then when you said it, hey, let's do that. I'm like, oh, I didn't know that. Oh, okay, cool. Let's do this then. So it was kind of like. So I've got a really basic knowledge of who the Fables are. Now, I think they did a great job with crafting it for people who have just a very basic understanding of Fables. If you know absolutely nothing about it, you may be a little bit lost. But again, I don't even want to say you'll be a little lost because they also do a good job of explaining who these people are within minutes. Within seconds of reading this, within a couple pages, like, oh, okay, that's Geppetto. Oh, that's the Big Bad Wolf. Oh, okay. And you see who these different characters are right from jump. You'll from right from the beginning know who they are, but with me, I just needed, oh, okay, that's so and so. Oh, okay, that's so and so. And if you don't know anything, you'll get the groove. So I think this is a good, solid story for non-readers, for people like me who've got the basic knowledge. Definitely basic knowledge. You're going to sit here, jump in, and you'll have fun with it because it's a good, solid story. And it's one of those things that whenever I read a good, solid Fable story, it makes me want to read the other stuff. And this 100% had me going, dang it, now I got to read what happened. Now I want to read what happened. And, and I'm like, I got to check this out. And every time I read Fables, I always enjoy. And it's one of those things, I don't know why I haven't been as, diehard loyal on Fable side as I have other books, because I really enjoy the story that they craft. 100% yes, all in for the 12. 2, accessible, 100% accessible if you've got basic knowledge, and I'm going to say a solid accessibility if you've never read any Fables before. They still bring you up to speed quick enough that you're going to get the groove. Plus, it's an entertaining story along the route. And this is a good intro and a good build for a 12-issue story arc.
The series ended with 150, so this is a continuation of the story, but it ended there. So the nice part is this really is truly a brand new arc. I was thinking about Sandman recently because last weekend I went to Neil Gaimen. They did this evening with Neil Gaimen, which is a tour that he's done multiple rounds of. And if you get a chance to see this, it's phenomenal because Neil gets up and he speaks and shares short stories, shares poems. Some of them are original that he's not. I mean, they're all original. There is, but I mean, some of them are ones that he hasn't published, if that makes any sense. So the other thing that he does is he collects questions from the crowd, or they collect questions from the crowd ahead of time, and he will randomly go through in between these stories and anecdotes and things that he's sharing and answer questions from the audience, and it's really great. So it's a cool little event. Where's relevant to this is I think about my first exposure to Sandman. I didn't start with issue 1 with Sandman. I jumped on an arc. I'd heard so many good things about it that just grabbed an issue. And it was during my college years where, you and I have shared many times. During college years, I didn't have any money. I mean, I had some I was working. I had some disposable income. But you're a college student. You have other expenses on top of that. So I was buying comics, and one of them I wanted to jump on was Sandman. So it was starting a new arc. I grabbed it. It was towards the second half of the run. I just got hooked and started going back. It was during a time where sometimes I sold comics in order to get comics, and that was the way I was able to get some back issues. I ended up getting the whole series because of that. The cool thing about Sandman, and I think it applies from Fables too, yes, it's great if you're able to read it from the beginning because there's so many pieces chronologically that you can put in. These arcs are designed that they are brand new stories, brand new arcs, and they fill you in with the information that you need on what has come before. And this story did a great job of that because it's been a while since I've read Fables. So to be able to jump on this and be able to read this new story, they're introducing the adversary in the old Fables is hinted at in this, and I'm not going to spoil it only because it's not needed for this particular story, but this introduces in the very beginning Peter Pan and Tinkerbell, and they're referring to their disappointment over where things have gone. They seem a little sinister, so I'm anxious to see what their relationship. This is the first I'm trying to think back. I don't remember Peter Pan being in the original Fables. This is, a brand new entry. We got King Cole, who's back, the mayor of Fabletown, who now he's dealing with the Mundies, the mundane, the normal people who can see the castle now that was hidden from them. Not necessarily invisible, but wasn't something, they could only see out of the idea was these things are there, but they're hidden in the corner of your eye. Like sometimes you'll think, did I just see? And
a giant castle?
Yes, exactly. It's that type of thing. And that was the idea that they were living and hiding in plain sight from this adversary, from their magical worlds that was out to destroy them. Now that adversary has been destroyed, what's happening is the Fables, many of them have dispersed back to their original storytelling worlds. It's a good tool, to your point, in this story because you can focus on a few characters. So they're focusing on a few key characters. Well, throughout the 12 issues, I'm assuming we're going to see more come back onto the scene. But being able to do these snapshots of King Cole and giving an idea of what Fabletown looks like now, with the world in general knowing about it. Peter Pan and Tinkerbell being introduced as characters that we really... Because he's talking about Geppetto, and he's like, listen, I told him what to do and what not to do, and now everybody knows about us. There's going to be a reckoning. and Peter Pan, boy, is going to... I see him kicking some butt in this 12-issue series. And I'm excited for that. I'm really excited for this.
That's one of the cool things with me on this page, with the introduction of the opening, because when I first saw Tink flying in, it's like, well, Tink, they did it. I'm like, oh, okay, Tinkerbell, that's got to be Pan. Oh, cool. And he was a character that I didn't ever remember seeing Pan, ever reading Pan. I'm like, oh, he must have been one of the enders, the ending thing. So the fact that you don't remember being around is kind of neat for me, because I was like, oh, this is kind of neat. I wanted to make sure to ask you, is Pan a villain? Because that was the vibe I got from him was, oh, he's a villain, and in real life he's a villain. Oh, that's kind of cool. Kind of like how what's her name's a little bit on the crazy side in the real world. So I was like, oh man, it's kind of neat.
This introduction, and that's one of the great things they've done with this, is they've put the right amount of comfort food classic fables into this, introduced some new characters or concepts that they haven't yet. This new Jack of the Green, or Jack in the Green, being introduced into the story was something that was great to follow as well, because again, something new that's being introduced. I am so glad. You got to go to Snow White and Bigby. I love the Big Bad Wolf. I love their kids. The fact that their kids can turn into wolves. The idea that they've left. Now their kids were were born and raised in our world, so they know all of our creature comforts, all of our TV and Nintendo and all that kind of stuff. Video games, and I should be calling it Nintendo's. Well, actually, I guess with the Switch, I'm not really dating myself so much, but. They know all of the comforts that we have here. So now they're being taken out in the woods and saying, we're going to build our own home here just the way we want it. In my bedroom and the TV in the kitchen, except for the TV room, there's no TV in this world. What? I love that moment with the kids. And Bigby and Snow's relationship is something that was one of the highlights of the original Fables series. Making that an accessible relationship here is pretty critical, because they're important characters. I think they're some of the strongest Fables characters, and I was glad to see them, because something would have been seriously missing without them. And knowing her on-again, off-again rivalry relationship with her sister Rose Red being referenced was pretty great as well. They could not go to the same world after everything wrapped up. Having read the ending of Fables and seeing that it was a welcome nod, but they gave that to the fans as well, knowing that, because I think there should be a certain point in this where you take a look at that and you go, if you're enjoying this issue, go back and read the other stuff. It's worth reading. So I think there's an important balance that they needed to put in this of teasing people into, if you read this 12-issue arc and really enjoy it, then you should go back and read the other stuff. And by the way, all of Fables is available on the DC app. They actually have a separate Fables section that they just plopped in. If you're somebody that's like, this was my first exposure to Fables or listening to this conversation, I would jump on this issue, and I ask you to jump on this issue if you're interested and curious, because give it a shot. It's good for the book, the current book. If you grab 151 and start reading this 12 issues, because that means we can get more. And greedily, I want more Fables. I feel this story is accessible enough that I can recommend to people, jump on the cool new story that's going on right now. At the same time, if you're enjoying it, get more of it on the DC app or buy collected editions. This is available. They have a really cool Fables Compendium box set where they released 4 volumes. That's Fables in chronological order. And it's a 4-issue compendium box set. The box set's coming out. It's a collection of the 4 books together in a nice, beautiful slipcase. So that's a cool way to get Fables. If you're looking for a way to get that. And they've released them also in these deluxe edition, hardcovers that we've seen. There's a lot of great ways to get Fables. But it's a story that I've bought more than once. I have it all in single issues, and I have it as well. And I've been getting the deluxe edition hardcovers, which are really, really nice as well. And I will certainly, obviously, eyeing that slipcase box that I'm mentioning as well. Because it's that kind of story for me that it's well worth. I know I'm going to read this over and over again. Comics that do that are something special. So
let's be honest. We both know you are getting that. Come on. Don't even say, I'm high and I'm thinking about it. No, it's done. Come on. And,
I am, here's where, when I say that with like that tentativeness, it's a digital piece that throws it in right now, because I have the deluxe edition hardcovers, but I've also bought the deluxe edition digitally so I could have it on my iPad. So it's like, I love this story. So I'm eyeing it and I'm like, okay, this is yet, because I'm not throwing that into the mix as well. I've bought it digitally too. So it's like, oh, am I going to buy it again? I might. I might. Because the compendium,
I'm like you are.
Because the compendium, because the compendium collects all the stuff. It's everything. So it's not just Fables, the series. There's been spin-offs and one-shots and things like that. Gorgeous hardcovers that have come out of this.
I 100% agree with you. I think you should get it.
My wife would kill you right now.
Yes, I know.
Because she sees this big box, she's like, what is that?
Yeah.
What did you get now? Where are you going to put it? And it's always the first question is, where are you going to put that?
Yeah.
Because that is a problem. It's like the space. It's a problem I'm happy to solve. Because I mean, these are all things that are solvable. It's like any mission, any quest, right? It's where do I put my stuff?
Now, a couple questions for you.
Sure.
Because now I really do like Gwen, the new Jack in the Green.
Mm-hmm.
I had no idea anything about the prior Jack in the Green, but
he's here.
For me, the Fable universe, anybody who's called Jack is the same Jack. It's the same guy, doing all the different stuff. That's how my mind goes with Jack. When we get here, we see an older version. So I'm like, is it the same guy? And how did he get old? When did he get old? How did she earn the title? Was that something that was done in the prior universe? Or is it just something they're starting off here? Those are the big questions I have with Jack in the Green and Gwen.
So I guess your question is a good one in the sense that I don't know if this old Jack, and I'm looking at some of the stuff online that I'm reading because I was wondering that as well. Is this meant to be Jack from Jack of Fables, or is there any connection at all? I don't know the answer to that. I don't, like, this Jack in the Green, the concept of Jack in the Green is a newer one. Especially this girl, Gwen, this is new to this. So, I mean, this is meant to be ground floor for all of us, which is nice in the sense that it's a new concept. Now, whether or not the same can be said for the old Jack in the Green, I don't know the answer to. And I think we're going to find that out along the way. So there's a mystery there, or, I think a story to be fleshed out there. And I'm very intrigued by these characters.
And I like the fact that she even makes the comment about how, it's the new way of doing things where it's, females now. It's all done with female archers now. New day requires a new Jack. And I like that notion, that concept that things are still evolving along with society, that we would get some changes. And again, I think she's a neat character because we saw earlier when she dealt with Mrs. Bear, she's getting ready to kill, oh no, hey, Gwen, oh, hey, Mrs. Bear, and she didn't need to kill the bear. So this isn't just a killer. This is, granted, if she needs to, she will, but it's not. I like the fact that this is an intelligent person and just, I want to get to know her, immediately. These couple pages that showed her and then showed her with the old Jack immediately got me interested in these characters. And that's one of the strengths, as I said, of this story, where I didn't really know who they were, but I was still captivated by them. I still wanted to read more, still wanted to see more. I want to know who the talking duck is. It's stuff like that where I think, that's one of the strengths of accessibility on this, in that, again, no idea who they were, but you get oh, that's kind of a cool character. I want, what's going on here? Who are they? Where is this going to go? How's this going to play out? I wanted to know more about them.
I was glad they brought back Cinderella at the end of the story.
Okay, I didn't know if that was Cinderella or Goldilocks. I couldn't tell which one it was.
The glass slipper
because of the blonde hair.
The glass slipper at the end's a dead giveaway.
Oh, a dead, Jim.
And Cinderella died at the end of Fables.
Oh,
so
okay.
This is apparently they're not done with Cinderella, and I'm excited for that.
Now, one of them is a little bit touched in the head. Which is it? Cinderella, who's a little bit on the off kilter, or was it Goldilocks?
Cinderella was the one that was the secret agent.
Okay.
Remember they had two spin-off miniseries.
Yeah.
That was Cinderella.
Okay.
Yeah. No, she's a secret agent. Now here's the thing. I don't know her current condition. Because she's not looking too good at the moment.
She's coming back. She's eventually gonna she's gonna heal.
So, but what that means for what direction they're going with her in this, I don't know. That's intriguing too. But I was glad to see her back because she was a character that I really enjoyed in the previous run. So I'm glad that they brought her back. The artwork is stunning in this. This is one of those examples of where it's a creative effort, a creative team on this book. This really, it felt like a homecoming in general, just in the overall visual style. I love the way they do the borders around the sides, that it just gives you the sense of like an old fairy tale book or something like that. It just atmospheric, and it's the only way to put it. There is a style to this book that immediately transports me somewhere, and I really, really enjoyed that choice. It's a very, very important series to me, and I'm not reading anything like this right now, so it's a welcome addition to my reading library to have this back. When you start reading something, you're like, I've been gradually making my way through the older volumes, and I set them aside for a little bit because of other things I've been reading, not because I'm not going to continue, just because I have. So it's been a while since I've read Fables. There was something special about reading new Fables now. Batman, Bigby, Wolf in Gotham, reading that has been great. And knowing that we're getting another Telltale video game is going to be great. They're doing another one of those. I'm excited to get more. I had no idea this was coming. I'm worried about that. And what I mean by that is there hasn't been a lot of advertising around this. I saw it it was actually in the comics that reminded me like, oh yeah, that is back. That's problematic. Because I would love I'm hoping people are picking this up. And please, if you dig it, shout it out. Because everybody listening to this has forums that they go to, or groups that they go to, or things that are outside of our show that are great opportunities to promote a book like this. If you're digging it, and I'm asking people to shout out things that it's not your cup of tea. If you're digging it, tell people why. And get the word out about it, because I don't want this to just be a 12-issue thing. I want it to be this is a 12-issue arc. But obviously, if it's successful, I'm assuming the creative team's going to be motivated to say, people really like this. How about another arc? And I want that. I want more. Because, the more that you have, the more that you have to revisit later. And this so far out of the gate, if it delivers what this initial issue is promising, because this was a very promising first issue, I'm going to want more of this after 12 issues.
Oh, definitely. And again, now Cinderella says Totenkinder killed her. Totenkinder killed her. So who is that?
That is one of the witches from classic fairy tales. She's kind of been explained as like an amalgamation of a lot of the one that did in Hansel and Gretel. She's been incorporated as being sometimes good, sometimes bad. She is a long-standing witch. I'm trying to what other things did Rapunzel. She's the one that captured Rapunzel. Okay. Fables had this way of incorporating certain witches and characters like that as putting them together. Like this is the same one that appeared in multiple stories because of the fact that they're all part of the big Fables world. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
She was one that at times seemed like this kindly old wise source of information. Then other times you find out, well, her story wasn't always so pleasant.
She ate children.
Yes. So it's cool how there's like twisted facets to characters that you're like, oh, I thought she was a good guy, and she kind of was, but like not always. I always appreciated that, but that's who she was. And at the end, there was a big confrontation between her and Cinderella, where both had interesting endings, shall we say?
Okay.
And even what I just said right now, I encourage you to read it because there's no way I can explain the cool nature of how everything played out in a quick little snippet like that. The story is far more interesting than knowing, because here's the thing, you know from this one what happened. You know that she died and she came back. Well, okay, but how did that happen is so interesting and so entertaining and so worth reading.
And that's something from the Fables universe. I like that they have these healing factors because they're so popular in the modern world, in the Mundy world, that it kind of it resurrects them and gives them this healing. And so obviously Cinderella is one that's going to be very hard to kill because her presence, her name, her everything about her is always being referenced and recognized, and variations on her story are out there. So as long as the story's being told, she lives. And I always like that kind of concept of Fables.
And this starts to build off things. If you've read Wolf in Gotham or haven't, like you could jump to Bigby, Batman, Wolf in Gotham, and there's elements of what's going on here that are actually referenced in that as well. It's a cool little synergy in the Fables world. Bill Willingham does a really nice job of maintaining his continuity, and it's fun to read some of these stories, and you can read them in any order. And that's really kind of the nice thing about the story is you can go back and instead of it being something that you're reading in real time, you're reading the history then of these characters. So it's any historical tome. It's fun to read the stories like that came before, find out about these characters. So that level of accessibility is really neat. I am so beaming over this because you know how like when something comes back and sometimes it's good and you're glad for more of it, doesn't quite hit the same chord of the original. Because it almost feels like a rehash, if that makes any sense. Mm-hmm. This feels fresh. And that was the nice thing what they did with this one. They did a nice balance of, I think, telling a new story while giving the right balance of familiar. And it's important because otherwise you get to sit there and go, okay, why is this back? Because of this. There's a story here that's teasing you in that it's going to be a big arc. And I'm glad it's a 12-issue, not a 6-issue. Because to me, a Fable story needs to feel epic. I'm thrilled that it's 12 issues. And like I said, I hope it leads to more. But kudos to the creative team because this is how you bring back a book.
Our next discussion is on World of Krypton, issue number 6. It's written by Robert Venditti, with drawn by Michael Avon Omen, with colors by Nick Filardi, edited by Hassan Otsmaneelhaou, covers by Mick Soyan and Annette Kwok, variant covers by Kat Staggs and Christy Quinn, and of course based on characters created by Cleveland's own Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster, by a special arrangement with the Jerry Siegel family. And apologies to name butchering, because I did a lot there, especially on the art team, and really sorry, because this is a beautiful book.
I am so glad that we came back with this one, because I mentioned this in the past, and we were talking about this right before we hit the record button. I mentioned this in the past back when we were doing a Speeding Bullets on issue 1, and just how much I really enjoyed this series. And now being able to come back with the series being wrapped up, it was a perfect six-issue story. And it's why when we were talking about what topics we wanted to do for this week, this was one of the ones that we both were talking about how it would be nice to talk about this book, World of Krypton. Because I don't hear a lot of conversation around this book, and it's really a very cool story that gives a nice snapshot of the events leading up to the famous, Superman being sent to Earth. And there's some great bits with Kara. It's Jor-El's. We get, I think, a really good look into Jor-El's family and their importance, in the extended family and their role. We get a really strong idea on his relationship with Drew Zod and Zod's standing in the community. Really how two brothers, friendships that are brother-like friendship. And you and I are both very lucky that we have strong friendships like this where we can relate. I mean, it's one of those things. I mean, look how long we've known each other. Philosophical differences are something that when you're blood related can break apart a family. When you're not blood related, Doesn't matter how close you are. Sometimes when you're not blood related, you've been through more together because of the fact that you're the same age, you've gone to school together, you just had different experiences together. And when these type of things hit you, it's earth-shattering. I thought what this story did really, really well is made me care about the relationship between Jor-El and Zod, but just as much between Jor-El and the rest of his family. Jor-El's brother, Jor-El's cousin. There were characters that I'm like, I don't even know who that is, and I'm like, I care. And that's something that was really important. This was a great, I almost want them to go backwards and do like a prequel.
Yes, do more.
I really love the whole and I want it to be the same creative team because I love the visuals. You mentioned the visual style when you were talking about the art team. I really feel like the writing and the art just really set a tone and a mood for me in this. And there's so many geek out moments in this that we can talk about. But I really loved the relationships and political and personal that were established here, because political is important to this.
Here's the interesting with the art team, and again, why I really wanted to apologize for butchering their names, because this art style is not my normal go-to art style of stuff. I say, oh, this is awesome. This is not the normal art style I go towards. It's just personal choice. But for some reason, this book, it felt so right, and I was like, "Oh, this looks cool." I remember from the beginning, and even as I was reading more, I'm like, "Oh man, I'm really digging this." I love again, like we had when we were talking Fables, the non-traditional borders. Well, they did kind of that with a lot of these same panels where you've got that non-traditional border. I love that kind of stuff. Just the kind of the overall art style. I'm normally the classic art style, but with the modern twist, where it's got more details, more etching. This, to me, has more of I want to say a cartoon feel to it, but I don't want it to sound like I'm insulting it, because I'm not, because it fits. For some reason, I absolutely love the look of this book that was going along with the story. So for me, this was a great meshing of the writing and art team forming a true creative team. And that's something I absolutely love throughout this series. And again, this is one where, we talked about the first issue and then we really didn't talk about it, but I'm sitting there reading this thing coming out. I did multiple read-throughs from the beginning to end just to kind of get that groove. And I'll tell you, I absolutely loved the fact that the story being told isn't just what we all knew. It's given us some background on the society, I love young Kara and her father and her mother. I love the fact that we got more stories about them and their interaction. I love the birth of the Phantom Zone. For me, that was something absolutely wonderful, because you think back to it, why would Jor-El, this man of peace, create this prison? Well, he didn't initially. That was a safety net. It was something he was doing. He was going to save his people with this. So he immediately tests it on himself and says, oh, my God, this is torture. I can't put my people through this. We got to come up with a plan B. And I love the fact that, he saw it that way. Zod's like, no, I think we should use this for a prison.
And let's talk about what happened. Wait, before you go any further with that, because I think you're hitting on something and I don't want to gloss over it. And I know you're not trying to, because you're making a critical point there. Jor-El, when he tested it on himself, his brother was helping him on it, and they were looking for a survival zone because they knew what was coming for their planet. They were looking for ways to save their planet. And when they were looking for this survival zone, Jor-El was away for a short period of time in Krypton time. For him, it was months he was trapped in that endless vastness. So the trap that you're talking about, oh my gosh, when he came out, it was horrifying, mortifying. It's something you wouldn't do to your worst enemy. He came out of that. He was not thinking of military applications for this or prison applications for this. He was like, we can't do this again. I don't want to go in there again. Nobody should go in there again. That's something, it's a mindset when you take a look at that, because it goes to what I was saying earlier about the breakdown between Zod and him. Zod's mindset was like, oh, I don't know, there's be used for that. It sounds like something that we could use some corrective action from that. And really, it shows that Zod's boundaries, well, there really are none. It's at the end, Zod is driven by wanting to accomplish his goals at any cost. He believes that the goals, the end result, winning, is more important than anything else. And he will sacrifice perceptions of morality to achieve those goals. And it's an interesting sort of relationship because in his mind, it is the greater good of Krypton, the greater good of that class. And he starts to push people into different categories real quickly.
Yeah.
And it gets, we see the birth of the General Zod that we know in this in a way that's really, really unique. And that Phantom Zone, boy, I'm so glad you're bringing that up because the Phantom Zone projector's creation in this one, I think they did one of the best jobs ever in creating how horrifying that really is. Because it's the blank slate that they give you when you're there. Sometimes it's done where, almost like, well, they're living on this other kind of world. That's not the picture that's painted in this. No. It's scary. This is, I think back to the movies that we grew up with Christopher Reeve, where they were trapped in that mirror screaming, and it was floating through space. That was like more of a horror aspect to it. This brought that back in and like kicked it up to 11. I thought that this was just a lot scarier as a concept. And very, very welcome. You could see where Jor-El would go, what have I done? What have I made here? How could anyone think of using this? And, and it's important.
Yeah. Oh, big time. And I love the fact that, you made the reference about how those two, Jor-El and Zod were friends. They're like brothers with each other, and just how the evolution and the change, and you see why Zod was making the choices, why Jor-El was making the choices, and it further adds to the Superman and Zod rivalry. Because I can 100% see Zod, while he's fighting, Superman, seeing that same kind of reaction, that same kind of like that mindset and just that personality that he had with his father. And for me, it was a really cool moment of, further realization why Zod really hates Kal-El. Because that was always something like, hey, it was his father who did this, not Clark. No, we see why now. And I thought that was a really cool thing. Plus, I did chuckle at how, again, you think back to a lot of the legends have, Clark and, Lex being friends as kids, and then they have the great fallout. We had the same kind of thing happen with Zod and Jor-El. And I like that. I like when you have all these similarities and these comparisons. And it does make me chuckle because you sit back and you think about the person you consider a really good friend. If they're decent and honorable and honest, that means you're the Zod of the friendship. So, Sean, Neil.
I don't know. I think there's times where it's the other way around, my friend. But it's funny. I really liked the development of Zor-El, Allura, and Kara in this because you got to see this dynamic of two brothers where the patriarch of the family is Jor-El. Zor-El's just as interested in the survival. He's also a parent, a current parent who is concerned about his daughter, her future. Not that Jor-El isn't interested in his son, but it's, the son hasn't been born yet. So they're looking at their infant in a very different way because at the start of this, they don't have a kid on the way. This is immediately a different look at the future that evolves and adapts. When Jor-El gets to the point at the end of this story that he's thinking about Clark, it really is his wife, Lara, who's had the chance to process, like, all right, we got to deal with our infant son here. Like, I get it that you're saying we got a year left. Well, we got a year to come up with plan B. And This is what I'm looking at for plan B. But what was important about this series is really focused on plan A, which was they were focused heavily on survival zones, shields. What could they do to extend the life of Krypton? Sacrifice of their way of life to survive. Where it's like, listen, your creature comforts, the energy that you're used to, things like that, we're all going to have to sacrifice. And Zod is making the call of, well, some people need to sacrifice more than others. Yes. And that's where things really start to break down philosophically between the two of them. Because it's not we're all in this together. It's, well, we're all in this together, but you got to understand the military and this political structure has needs, and our needs outweigh yours. So there are the haves and the have-nots, and the have-nots are going to have not a little bit more than they ever have before. And it was an interesting sort of, very contemporary as far as when you talk about a society breakdown, why it's important not to disenfranchise people. Because they have uprisings due to this, due to Zod. Zod is breaking down society. So it's a very contemporary story when you're looking at it and you're like, whoa, there are things that we can look at our own society and learn from this. That no matter where you fall politically, there are lessons to be learned from this story. And I love when art does that.
Oh, big time. And I liked how, initially the philosophical arguments that Jor-El and Zod had about how Jor-El's like, the people of Krypton will respond, and he was an optimist that people would give up this stuff willingly, and Zod's like, no, they won't. They won't give up this stuff. We have to take it from them. They're not going to do the right thing. And I love that kind of notion, because that's, again, something we see in everyday society where there's a lot of people saying, hey, we all work together and we can band and we can... Something as simple as recycling. There are still people, there are a lot of people out there who are very hardcore, very dedicated to recycling, to the point where they're doing, mulch piles and, compost piles and this and all that to really reduce their carbon footprint. And there's others who are like, I don't care. I'm going to, keep getting my styrofoam, keep getting my water bottles. I don't care about any of that stuff. Even if it's recyclable, I'm just going to throw it away. And you have that in society where you've got different levels of different people on how far they're going to go. And I loved seeing Jor-El and Zod have that similar discussions. Not exactly that, but it was about people had to give up energy so that they could send it down to the core to stabilize the core. And I love the fact that these two scientists, him and his brother, did come up with a way to save Krypton.
Yeah.
Because that was something that always rang in my head. Like, this great society couldn't figure out a way to save it. No, they did. They just ran out of time. They didn't have enough energy for it. They didn't have the people backing them on it. And I love just this explanation on everything going, they could have actually saved the planet. Everyone would have basically had to given up their creature comforts. Go 100% back to basically a non-electrical society so that they could stabilize the core. And the people weren't willing to give that up because, one, they didn't believe it, and again, we've seen that a lot where people are told something, that's probably not true, or I don't think that's right. I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing. You see that nowadays. We see it in a book. I was like, oh, that was the kind of stuff I loved about this story.
Yeah, the story really, really was something where it's one of the reasons why I'm glad we do this show. Obviously, in the month that we do a podcast every month, we do 2-3 books, an episode. So we're far from able to cover the vast array of works published from DC. So we try to spotlight works that we really enjoy, or sometimes it's works like this where it's like, I'm not hearing a lot of noise around this one, and it's something worth talking about, and hopefully pointing people to that may have missed it. And that's really one of the goals of this. This is something that may have been under your radar. With collected editions coming up, things like that, grab this series if you didn't catch it the first time around, because it's well worth reading. And that's something that, if we accomplish that in these episodes, I consider this show a success, because we're trying to help people. We're all struggling with budgets and the budget of money or the budget of time to be able to hit with comics. And I hope we do a good job of pointing people to things sometimes that are unique that they may have missed. Which I know it's weird to say something with World of Krypton, but this one, I don't know about you, I didn't hear a lot about this book, and I'm surprised. Just because it's a Superman-related title, a fairly big I say a fairly big character. It's Superman, but he's not in it. I think that's an interesting piece. It's his family and the history.
I think probably why, and I don't know how the numbers did, but I think probably one of the things that hurt it is everyone knows the story. So like, I don't need it. But that's the thing about this book that did a great job where, we know the story of Krypton fails. They send Clark. Kara also gets sent to Earth and all that stuff. We know those big stuff. This book was all about the lead up to that. Now you know the rest of the story. I think that for me was absolutely my favorite part about this. The fact that it really doesn't, it doesn't cover the stuff that we already know. This ends at the rocket launch. This ends at all that stuff. Mm-hmm. This whole character, this whole story was about Zod, was about Jor-El, was about Kara and her family. just the stories that they told was absolutely wonderful for me, because she always said, in the book, she says, I lived on Krypton. That's the difference between her and Cal. She actually did. And they show her living on there. So they show her growing up and going to school and these concerts and these different stuff. And, she's looking at her life, and maybe there's some future possibility the whole time. Her father and mother, like, the world's ending. And he's, doing everything he can to try to save this world for his daughter. And I love just that side story. This whole thing, her family, could be a whole side miniseries that would be another thing I would love to read, just because how we got a really cool look at them. I would love an even deeper dive on that.
Yeah, and I do want to clarify, just so I'm not being irresponsible with this. I don't know that this did. I'm not saying that this did poorly or that it didn't have good sales numbers. All I'm saying is I didn't hear a lot of buzz around it. Here's what I don't know nowadays, and this is just an honest reality. I don't know in today's culture or today's comic book numbers what are considered comic numbers and what are considered bad. What I don't know is how physical and digital sales impact. What I mean is, okay, there's the physical sales at comic shops and through online ordering and things like that. Then there is the digital sales, and I'm hoping that they're counting those digital sales when they take a look at the success of a book. Not that I'm taking anything away from the physical. I mean, they need to count both so that way, they look at the success of something. But I don't know that this didn't do well. It may have done well because it said Krypton in the title. Great if it did. I just haven't heard people talk about it, which does, now I will say, pulling back, that's the part that gets me worried and makes me wonder, well, did this take a hit? And that's where I feel like part of our responsibility is to point people towards a book like this. Because when you've got a sequence in the beginning of this, which was a spinoff from the conclusion of the last issue, where you've got Jor-El decked out in a Superman outfit.
Yep.
That kicked butt. I really love, because it was an armored, Superman armored outfit with the red and blue and yellow. I got to tell you, that was a great move. I was like hoorahing because I wanted to see the fight between the two of them, and it was great to see Jor-El use his science to one-on-one, toe-to-toe. If he was going to go toe-to-toe with Zod, he's not going to be able to go toe-to-toe with the military man using straight-up fighting tactics because he's a scientist. But he can use his smarts to give himself the right kind of enhancements to be able to stand toe-to-toe. And it's one person's convictions against another one person's talents against another. And it was really great to see this battle of, I have to win. I have to stop you here. You're my brother. I love you. And I mean, he's pleading with him.
Yeah.
But I cannot let you continue down this path. You are destroying our society, destroying any chance we have of accomplishing anything together here. Wow, it was one of the more compelling stories that showed the breakdown of that relationship and why at the end you're like, I get why Zod had to be imprisoned, but Jor-El's disgust that he had to use the Phantom Zone projector to the point where he destroys it. And you get why. You're like, this is an abomination. This device. It he feels icky afterwards.
Yes.
And I loved that. I mean, it was because it was so built throughout the story as far as why he'd feel gross. And it will haunt him for the rest of his life.
Yeah.
It's a year, but for the rest of his life.
Yeah, not long, it's still. But I'll tell you, I loved just that opening moment with those two, because he's like, I'm not here to fight against you. I'm not even here to fight for me. I'm here to fight for Krypton. And just that stance he's got going on there. Again, as you said, it's the battle armor kind of sciencey look, but it's got the blue, the red, the classic Superman look to it. I'm like, oh man, I cheered. And even they show in that panel, they show Zod down and kind of cowering in a way. It was just a great moment. It was really a cool, and just some of the fight sequences that they did on this, because they took full pages where there was no dialogue, but just good physical action, in these fight sequences. Then you throw in this mob riot going on where Kara and her family are stuck right in the middle of it because they're just leaving this concert. And I thought that for me was just a really cool balance on the two, where you get this cool fight sequence with Zod and Jor-El, then you got the family and just going back and forth. I tell you, this was a really neat looking page. A couple pages and just a really cool visual storytelling elements that they did going with that, just showing the true breakdown of society.
I actually liked seeing, too, that Zor-El and Jor-El both have reasons, and their respective wives, have reasons to want to get their child away from Krypton. And they're different. Because of that riot, it sets up why Zor-El wants to get Kara off the planet. You got to get out of here. This is not a good environment for you. And that society breakdown and the way things are, he's like, I got to get you away from here. This world isn't your fault, and you shouldn't be a victim of it. And that whole sequence with her was brilliant, because you get why she would leave and why it looks different than her cousin. I liked that distinction, because it added a little more depth to the reasoning behind her leaving. Not that there was anything wrong with what they did before, but, obviously they needed a justification as far as why his cousin's there and, on Earth. And this just added a whole other layer to it. And it was really, really great. I wouldn't mind seeing a follow-up to this that, closes the gap, on the rest of it. So I know it ends with the beginning, but there is another story to be told here. We can fill in the blanks, but man, I really, really enjoyed this. And whether or not we get that continuation of this is irrelevant. It's at the end of this, I wanted more. I wanted to know what happened before this. I wanted to know what happened afterwards. That's a satisfying limited series, I think, where they make you think beyond the page. And boy, did they certainly do this.
Holy caffeine!
I would like to remind everyone about our show voicemail line. It's 1-440-388-4434 or Dr. Norge on Skype. If you'd like to participate in the show in that method, we would love to hear from you. RagingBullets@gmail.com is your email address to reach out to us if you have any comments, reviews, things that you want to share. Anything you want us to shout out on the show or talk about on the show, it's a great way to reach us as well. RagingBullets.com is our show website. It feeds into a fan page on Facebook. It also feeds into Twitter. We also have a great Facebook group community. It really belongs to the people that participate there, but boy, do I pull from it for the podcast. And I want to thank everyone who posts things there. And please use it to shout out your own blog, shout out your own podcast, shout out any, if you're a listener here and you're like, hey, I think the topics that I'm talking about would be of interest or relevance to your listeners. And also, even though the group is focused on DC Comics because of the nature of this podcast, feel free to chat about anything pop culture that you want to in that group. It's an open group. I love the fact that the new Doctor Who was posted there a couple weeks ago, and I'm a huge Doctor Who geek. Yeah, obviously, I'm excited for that and loved hearing the shout-outs of things like that as well in that section. So please use it for anything. But I want that. It's an open community, so don't feel like you're restricted on things you can post there. The only thing that I think is one of the things I love the most about that community is just it's fun, it's friendly, it's made up of great people. And thank you for everyone that keep it to be such a safe and positive community over there. We are sponsored, as always, by DCB Service and InStockTrades.com. Mr. Seglin, what is going on over at DCBService.com?
We have Superman Space Age issue 1 of 3, 40% off, only $5.99. We have Superman vs. Lobo hardcover, 50% off, only $12.49. And we have Superman's pal, Jimmy Olsen's boss, Perry White one-shot, 40% off, only $2.99. Thank you, DCBS.
I love the title of that book. Over at InStockTrades.com, we have Galaxy, the Prettiest Star trade paperback in the deals of the week. $16.99 regularly, 50% off, only $8.49. Two versions of the Sandman Book 4 trade paperback. We have the regular version, which is $34.99 regularly, 50% off, only $20.92. And the variant cover version, which is $34.99 regularly, 50% off, only $17.49. They're promoting big time that Netflix series that's coming up and that actually has the banner on both of those. So if you've missed these, do yourself a favor. You're missing a treat. It's one of my favorite of all-time stories and well worth picking up and seeking out. I want to remind everyone about the About Us section of our show website. That's where you can connect to us on social media, on gaming platforms, really any way that you want to get to us. I update that regularly as things change for us, so please check it out. I always put the date up on the website when we've done some updates. There's a couple things I want to put up there recently, like I've got an Xbox console I'm running right now, so I wanted to put that information in there so people, if they want to connect with me through that method, they can. So I'll be putting that up this week, but we love connecting with all of you. Our next episode, Jim and I are going to be back, and we're going to be talking about Blood Syndicate and Duo as we take a side journey into Milestone. So we will see you then.
Bye.
All right, you guys. Are you ready to sing your song?
I'd say we are. Yeah, let's sing it now.
Okay, this should be fun. Now get ready for your cue. Okay, Sean?
Okay.
Okay, Jim? Jim? Jim!
Okay. Raging Bullets time is here. We talk about what we hold dear. Comic books and TV shows. Superheroes and their clothes. Justice League and so much more. I just love Green Lantern Corps. We talk about the books we've read with spoilers straight ahead.
Okay, fellas, get ready. That was very good, Sean.
Naturally.
Jim, you're a little flat there, so be careful. Jim? Jim? Jim!
Okay. Justice League and so much more. I still love Green Lantern Corps. DC Comics are what we know. The Raging Bullet Show. DC Comics are what we know. The Raging Bullet Show.
Excellent job, guys.
Let's sing it again. Yeah, let's sing it again.
No, that's enough. Let's not push it.
Push it. What is that? Yeah, what are you talking about?
No, I didn't mean anything by that.
I think
Jim,
it's right
Jim,
there. I don't know.
how long do you want the song to go?
Look, it's our production.